Hello and welcome to week 2 of the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh. That's me, Kelly Singh, and I'm here to talk Arizona Cardinals with you. This is the second week we've been in existence. The first week, I will say, was a little rough for me, but mostly just because I wasn't super comfortable in my studio environment. Today, I feel so much better. And then you're going to see me again when I'm back home in Phoenix, where I live. I'm currently on the road working. So today, I want to bring you a special guest, a friend of mine, Brent Summers. I've known him for quite a while in the local Phoenix social media circle. And he is a big Cardinals fan, so I'm excited to have him on today. Let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh.
Murray heaves it downfield. It's caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins. Miraculous. It's Murray magic.
The sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we're back. Hearing that intro makes me excited for DeAndre Hopkins to get back, right? Oh, that'll be so exciting. So like I mentioned, I have a special guest today, my friend and fellow Arizonan, Brent Summers. Hey, Brent.
How you doing, Kelly? Good to see you today.
Yeah, great. It's so good to see you. I know you're in the middle of your work day, as am I, but luckily this is kind of part of my work day. You're getting a chance to step away, and I really appreciate you making time for us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time today, and hey, congrats on your new role, and hopefully this podcast it's exciting, and it'll be great to see how it unfolds during the season this year. So
Thank you. Yeah, it is super exciting. I feel so lucky to be part of the Sick Podcast Network. There are so many great shows that are starting up brand new and ones that have already been established. So super thrilled to be here. Super thrilled to have you as a guest. And the first thing I want to do is kind of kick off into a little bit about yourself. How long have you lived in Arizona? Let's just start there. How long have you lived in Arizona?
Right. So I have lived in Arizona since 1979. So I'm not a native, but I've been here a long time. And so I've seen, obviously, I'll tell you a little bit about the long storied history of myself as a Cardinal fan. But that obviously starts, a bit earlier. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it didn't start with Arizona, it must have started before that elsewhere, before they moved to the Valley. So why don't you give us that story? Because I haven't heard one quite like that before.
Okay. Yeah, so I was actually born in Kansas, in the Midwest, in a small town in the southeast Kansas, and technically the town received an award from Google Earth being technically the center point of the United States. And so they have this nice little plaque in their city hall. It's a town of about 10,000 people. So with that, when I was about 6 years old, I was always sort of watching sports with my dad and my family. And of course, we were closer to Kansas City at the time. So all of my family were Royals fans. They were Kansas City Chiefs fans, and I just adopted the Cardinals, both baseball and football at that time. And I've maintained my loyalty, my entire life. That's not going to change. So
it's not going to change. What made you choose the Cardinals at that time? What drew you to them?
I think at the time I was watching the game, and it goes back a long way, but Jim Hart was their quarterback. It was just kind of a fun team. I was only 6 years old, and I'm like, I like the way they play. I like it sounds kind of dumb, but the color scheme of the uniforms is something different. So I wanted to adopt them, and that's how it happened. So, and it's been a struggle over the years, but I'll tell you a little bit about that.
It has been a struggle. I can totally relate to that in a sense. Over the years, I myself have been probably what most would have called a bandwagon Cardinals fan.
Hmm.
However, my excuse would be I play a lot of fantasy football, and I have for many, many years. And it's
Yeah.
so hard to cheer for both a fantasy team and feel really devoted to a local team. But as I've gotten older, it's become much easier to do that. And of course, I'm a huge Ravens fan as well. I would say those are my two favorite teams, and they both happen to be birds.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on this before we talk more about your fandom. How do you feel about this year's hashtag? I am still out on it. I really don't like Bird City football. I don't. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, when I saw it, I'm like, what's this? And I had to go and investigate a bit, because you're used to seeing Bird Gang, and when that was adopted. And so I think there's been mixed feedback on social media about Bird City football. So it doesn't really, I don't know, like, it makes sense, from a team perspective. But do you know, Kelly, like, how that was adopted?
I
No.
don't. I imagine it was just the marketing team sitting back thinking it was a really good idea. And working in marketing, I know that's usually how things happen. I just wish there might have been more consideration of the fandom, because the Bird Gang has been established forever and is a very renowned, I would even say, like, world renowned. That's kind of big, but nationally renowned fan group, and they are at every tailgate. If they
Hmm.
don't make the tailgates, they will gather elsewhere at various local bars, and you will see Bird Gang represented
Yeah.
everywhere. So I was really surprised to see when we landed with Bird City football. I don't think Phoenix, other than having the Cardinals as a mascot, I don't know that Arizona is known for its birds. It just was weird. And they're the
No.
Arizona Cardinals. So why are we focusing on a city? Why is it Bird City?
Yeah, yeah, because it's not the Phoenix Cardinals anymore. So, and when
Right.
they moved from St. Louis to Phoenix back in 1988, they were the Phoenix Cardinals. And as you know, over
Mm-hmm.
the years, the state attempted, the state wanted to adopt them as the state's team. There were fans all over the state that were cheering for them. So
Right.
they had the name change. But and we talk about the Phoenix Cardinals. That was when they moved here in 1988. We got season tickets right out of the gate. It was a great inaugural season. Um, Neil Lomax was the quarterback at the time. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in Cardinals history. He played college ball at Portland State, but it was just a fun first season. There was a lot of excitement, for the football team here. Obviously, Arizona had the USFL. The Arizona Rattlers, came on recently in that time period. But when we went to the games at Sun Devil Stadium back in the late '80s, early '90s, a lot of the a lot of the fans were visiting fans. So in many cases, the visiting fans outnumbered the home fans. And so
Mm-hmm.
what that meant, you get to the end of the third quarter when they cut off alcohol sales. There were a lot of fights in the fourth quarter. So
You're so right. I remember back in the day when there were so many fights among fans. And I remember my dad, he was like, yeah, I don't think it's just a good environment to bring you. I wanted to go so bad, but it was kind of bad news at that time because of, it was just a different element. You don't necessarily bring a 9-year-old 10-year-old girl into. So
Yeah.
I definitely felt like I was missing out because I was in grade school and all the kids were wearing the starter jackets, but they were, at the time, everybody was a Cowboys fan or a 49ers fan, I feel like, or possibly Oakland. It was like those three cities seemed to dominate at least
Right.
my grade school.
Yeah, and that's the way it was in the stands as well. So when those teams came to the Valley, Cowboys fans, Raiders fans, and yeah, as a kid and even as a home fan, it's intimidating going into that environment, knowing that you have to watch what you say to the visiting fans. So yeah, it was an interesting dynamic between the two sides. So, and at the time, back in when they first, after the first couple of years, you could actually scalp a ticket for $5 or $10. So it was really easy to find tickets. I mean, if you go back to the early 90s, the mid 90s, those were the lean years. We had a lot of 4-12 seasons, 5-11. It didn't really, they were definitely the lean years until we get into when they drafted Jake Plummer after the 97 season, or after 96, when you get into that following season where they finished 9-7 and they went to the playoffs. So
yes, I think that's when it was really hard to be a fan, but still, I loved being an Arizona native. I mean, you might as well have been a native. You've been here, since young childhood, and being in Arizona that long, it's unique. It really is. We have so many transplants here. And if you go to games today, you will still see a huge mix of fans, albeit the Cardinals fans do at this time outnumber opposing fans, but there's a healthy crowd no matter who's playing. Like, I went to even the preseason Ravens and Cardinals and sat in the Ravens team section, and it wasn't that intimidating. I did feel somewhat intimidated walking in, but you can spot, other Ravens fans. I feel bad saying this, but I was cheering for both sides, but I did wear Ravens gear because it's very few and far between that I get to see the Ravens play in Phoenix. So it was really exciting. But that's something I love about Arizona, is that there's such a mixture of fandom across the sports world. And I feel like it hits most in football. I don't know if you see the same observation or not, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Kelly. I think it does sort of hit, NFL and football the most, because it is such, everyone loves football. So yeah, I know you're a Ravens fan. You always have been, and one, the Arizona connection. So the player Terrell Suggs, and he played his high school ball in Arizona.
Yep.
At Hamilton High School. He actually was played a couple of positions. He was a running back at the time, and then he moved on to Arizona State. And so I'm an ASU fan as well. I watched him play in a bowl game at the time. We wanted him to stay. He went on to the NFL, and he was very successful, with the Ravens. So.
Yep. I love me some T-Sizzle, and that was part of my favorite thing, was it had that hometown connection. It made me cheer for him even more. I love that a lot. And I know what a big ASU fan you are.
Yeah.
Let's talk about last week, but not too long, because I had a good 20 minutes of last week talk, and it just kind of bummed me out trying to find highlights to be excited about. But you got to be excited about what you can. So there were some highlights. We did see some Kyler Murray rushing yards. We did see a few defensive plays and recoveries. I don't even know if there were a few, but we'll use a few. But it wasn't what I expected to see last week. What about you?
Yeah, so I think when you go into the season opener, obviously they've modified the preseason a little bit. So, and a lot of the starters are not playing that final preseason game. I think everyone, the entire fan base is excited. The results definitely, I think it's more of a hangover of last year. So if you look at the Cardinals, they're 1-6 in their last 7 games going back to last season. So, you think, are we going to see the Cardinals from the end of last year? Are we going to see the Cardinals that had that amazing undefeated start in the first half of the season? So, and I think Kansas City is a really good team. So Patrick Mahomes, he's at the top of his game. We know they lost Tyreek Hill. They replaced him with, some other weapons, but he really did a really good job spreading the ball around, going through his progressions. They were able to run the ball. They were able to throw the ball. It was definitely not a great performance for the Cardinals. And so what happens is that if this is what we're going to see right out of the gate in week 1, normally after a blowout like that, the team comes back and
Right.
They're prideful and they say we like Cliff Kingsbury said, you have to practice better in order to play better. So hoping to see a better performance against the Raiders, and those players are going to step up. It's going to be a close game this week, but there's a number of factors that are going to come into play.
Yeah, there really are. The Raiders are, no slouch this year. Devontae Adams, amazing performance with Derek Carr last week. I feel like they had a really great chemistry, and that's something that we're really going to have to try and contain. Waller, excellent tight end. Again, someone we're going to have to try and contain. I think my biggest concern was the amount of total yardage. It was garbage. It was 240 yards or something ridiculous like that. And moving the ball at less than 5 yards per play average. Oh, that's so awful.
Right. Yeah, I think when I was looking at the box score as the game was progressing, and I was looking at each drive, and I want to say 6 of their drives resulted in 4 plays or less. So it was not a good showing. So I'm hoping that they come back. I think it's going to be definitely more of an even game. The offensive line for the Raiders is a little more suspect. So we'll be able to get a push, but Derek Carr is going to spread the ball around. Don't forget about Hunter Renfrow.
Right.
He's going to utilize Hunter Renfrow. Darren Waller is going to get his yards. Obviously, Devontae Adams, and then Josh Jacobs as well. So, and he has his ups and downs during the year, but I think they're going to give a healthy dose of Josh Jacobs as well.
I think you're right, and I'm hopeful that we can maybe see Watt back again this week. That would be excellent. Perhaps Rondale Moore. I mean, a hamstring injury, though, is not something you can just bounce back from. So while he's listed as questionable, I'm hesitant to think that he'll play, but who knows? Maybe he will, and we'll have another receiving weapon. I really did enjoy seeing the work. There were 2 really great plays that I loved between Marquise Brown and Kyler Murray. And that was, a long pass. I think it was like 27 yards. So that is a long pass. And it was probably the most yardage that actually boosted the average yards to be where they were. which is still abysmal. But I enjoyed seeing that because that's something that Brown excels at. He excels at the longer passes. And I know he's really been working hard on catching. I was very hard on Hollywood Brown last season. He had the yips. It appeared at one point, and the Ravens had him catching soccer balls to try and just get back some confidence. And then he made that great play in the back of the end zone, right in the corner, catching the ball. So that was probably my favorite parts of the game. Did you have anything different that was your favorite part or not?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Hollywood Brown, and you can't. He is a great talent, and you know that him and Kyler Murray, have that chemistry going back quite a ways. So he was super excited about coming here. And I know obviously that just creates, again, an additional connection for you, knowing that he came from Baltimore.
Right.
He's always one of the leaders in the league in air yards. So, I think he's going to stretch the field. He gives, K1 the opportunity to, go for those long balls and I think they will succeed this season for sure. So, but again, week one, you put it behind you, you go into week two, and I think you'll have more opportunities as the season unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I saw from a receiver perspective is that, Greg Dortch, he came in the preseason. He had a really good preseason. He had a few, really nice catches. And he's going to continue to get playing time, especially if he sort of steps up like that. So if Rondell Moore can't go, or if they're still struggling, obviously, DeAndre's out, so he continues to make plays. He's going to be another option. So.
Yeah, I don't know that I saw that coming. I do know that he played well in the preseason. I don't know that I saw that coming in game one. Even though Rondell Moore was out, it was exciting to see. I love seeing players that you don't normally see take a spotlight. So that was super fun and exciting. And then I think once Rondell does get back, what I would love to see is that, slot, like right up the middle, get that 5-10 yards, get the fourth down conversion, all of those things that we want to see out of Rondale, and then complement that with Hollywood Brown getting that long, deep ball. It's going to be really great. I know that you have to run. I appreciate your time. I love that you think it's going to be a close game, a good game. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful that it's exciting and fun and goes right down to the wire with a Cardinals win because, of course, there are some fantasy points on the line. So I like it when it's very competitive. But yeah, thank you so much, Brent, for coming on. I hope to have you on again later this season. You have some really insightful points to add to my colorful commentary.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kelly, I do have one other thing to say about the upcoming game. And I think we're looking forward to seeing, I think there was some disappointing play from the linebackers core. Mm-hmm. So Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons, I think those two guys are keys, in the middle. They have to step up. And so hopefully, again, it's about pride, right? So we're going to see hopefully a more collective effort by the entire team. But yeah, I mean, I'm a fantasy. I play fantasy as well. I will tell you, if you go back, we're talking about the early 90s for the Cardinals. My first time playing fantasy was in 1991. My roommate and I in college, we were in a small league. He got out the Monday sports page out of the newspaper, and that's how we were tracking time. So that's we were tracking the points for fantasy. So, but obviously way more advancement now, way more analytics. It's fun. You obviously, you get to watch all the games and be vested in a lot of them. So I'm hoping, again, thank you again, Kelly. I appreciate your time having me on the Sick podcast, and I'm more than willing to come back later this season to be another guest. So.
Yay! I agree with you 100%. I think that we will need to have that defensive line definitely step up, do more, And I mentioned that pride thing on Tuesday as well. I think they will want to show they've got what it takes. So let's cheer on those Cards. Go Bird City football.
I just say go Cards. Let's go get
Cards.
the first win and go from there. So, all right.
Thanks so much, Brent. I really appreciate you again, and have an amazing rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Good seeing you, my friend. We'll talk soon. Okay.
You bet. So there you have it, my friends. An interview with a fan plucked right from the depths of Bird City football. My friend, Brent Summers. You can find him at Brent S47 on Twitter, and join in the conversation with another Cardinals fan. So I'll be back on Tuesday. We'll discuss the game. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to me at Kelly in Phoenix and to the pod at SickPodKelly. I'll see you again next week. Thanks. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.